Welcome to Cash Talk, the podcast where we delve into the depths of finance, business, and life itself. I'm your host, John Cachia, a multi-award-winning wealth advisor with a passion for empowering ambitious Australians to confidently achieve financial freedom. Hey everyone, before we get started, this is a quick reminder that everything in this podcast is of a general nature and nothing has been tailored to your personal circumstances. So please seek personal financial advice before acting on this information. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cash Talk. And today I'm joined by Ayten. Ayten, how are you?
I'm well, John. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It feels like there's been a little bit of time between the last appearance on Cash Talk for you.
It's been a while.
How'd you get out of that?
I'm busy, John.
Okay. I thought you were ducking and weaving me, to be honest with you.
Nah, I would never do that.
And things have been busy for you. And when you mean busy, like there's obviously been a lot of clients that have been reaching out. I know that we've been working together on a few different clients. And a topic today is something that's been topical, in a lot of the conversations. And what we're going to be speaking about today, everyone, is around some of the fear and greed that people have in their wealth journey. And we're not going to be just talking about the investment cycle here. We're talking about other aspects where fear and greed has an impact on your decision making, even on a more shorter term basis in regards to how you think and interact with money on a daily basis. And there's many people that come to see us, especially initially, with a lot of greed or even a lot of fear. And maybe, Ayten, some of the things that you see, especially in the investment landscape lately.
You make a good point, actually, because a lot of people, they don't really know what they want. So they come in here and they're like, okay, blow my socks off. Mm-hmm. How much am I going to have in the future? And I think it's not until that point that you go through the road mapping session and you say, hey, listen, this is what you're going to be, what income you're going to be generating. This is how much assets you're going to have. And like some people might think, yeah, I want like $10 million because that's going to be enough for me. But you really put it in perspective for clients to say, actually, this is how much this is going to generate. And this is going to be exceeding what you're going to need at that time as well. So I think it just comes from, like you say, the greed that we need to have X amount of money and like having that expectation, but realigning that with, okay, well, what are your goals? And what are we trying to achieve? What are your expenditure at the moment? And what do we expect that to be in the future? And realigning like the idea of not being a multimillionaire, but having enough that you need.
And it's interesting, like today I had another one where there was actually a couple, and one of the couple was mainly based on like a greed factor, like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, and I want it tomorrow. Yeah. And where the other part of the side of the couple was a lady who was more in fear. The biggest things that she was talking about was like, are we going to have enough? Mm-hmm. I'm really worried about, is our money going to last? Are we able to get through? So, and what's very interesting is that with the way that we communicate now and the way that we're exposed to so much news and so much information and so much greed and fear signals, it's very sensitized. And so, if it be that you open up Instagram, for example, and you're seeing, in another facet, you're seeing wars right in your face. It was only, say, 15, 20 years ago where you wouldn't have had that exposure. It would have been at 6 o'clock on Channel 9 or Channel 7 or whatever you're watching, and you saw that. And so there was very, very short snippet. And especially in Australia, we were probably quite distant. And, there's atrocities obviously all over the world and we want them to stop. But in the particular situation, you can see how someone fears, And so then coupled with like financial woes, if you take it in regards to, certain news articles in regards to, doom and gloom happening, the market's going to crash, the property markets, and literally like every time I watch YouTube, and I love like watching my history and stuff like that, and I'm trying to watch my video, and then bang, this guy comes up. It's the same guy all the time. Like the Australian property boom is about to go. And it's just like, but that's what I'm getting at. It's like basing on this kind of fear and this greed and in the sales
algorithm, isn't it?
It is. It's the algorithm, and it's a sales process that has now been scaled. Yeah. Because like in sales training, they teach around greed and fear. Yeah. And if you ever hear like these, you have a look at like Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. And it's like that greed factor or that fear factor. And so when you take it into like just the landscape, people are ultra sensitized to both. Yeah. When you take the greed factor, because we've been talking about some of the fear factor, if you take some of the greed factor, it's like I don't know if it's just my feed, but like if it's guys, everyone's in front of a Lambo. Everyone's in front of a Ferrari. Everyone's got a huge house. Yeah. Like it's everything like amazingly, unrealistically 1% of the world population, not even probably point zero, percent of the world population being shown in that greed.
Yeah.
And so it has fundamental problems in regards to then what do you do with your own life. And so you've really got to kind of cut through all of that noise and actually understand what makes you truly fulfilled and what truly makes you happy and try to remove that emotion.
Yeah.
And it is a constant battle.
Yeah.
Like, Ayten, I know, with yourself, with myself, and I'd really like that. Or maybe I should have more of this. That's greed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to get exposed to that because like in the algorithm, in the Instagram or the Facebook or TikTok, whatever people are using these days, you're constantly exposed to that. But not only that, then your friends are exposed to it. And then you're having conversations about, like, for example, crypto. The fear of missing out because, like, it's going up. Oh, no, this is the time because it's going up. Or, like the stock market, oh, it's going up, it's going down. Sell, it's going down. Don't, or buy, it's going up. But the idea is reversed, right? Because, you go into a shop and something's on sale. Are you going to buy it? Or maybe something that you need, obviously.
Yeah.
Are you buying it? Or are you going, oh, no, the company's like going down. I'm not going to buy what's on sale. Of course you're going to buy it.
And it's actually interesting you say this because I was having a conversation with someone around kind of this exact philosophy around like stock markets or markets in general. That isn't it interesting that when the stock market goes up, it's in green? And when the stock market goes down, it's in red?
Yeah.
And then when you see all over the news, it's all red, 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 red.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like when you drive a car, and it doesn't matter where you are kind of in the world, green is go.
Yes.
And red is not. And so is stop. And so that kind of psychology is playing on people's minds. Yeah, even if it's on colors. And so when we talk about investing, humans are irrational. We make irrational decisions based on emotions, which is a fundamental core of being a human. Yeah, it comes to our, fight or flight mechanisms that we have and that we use them in our daily operations when it comes to decision making, if it be non-financial, but definitely financial. And so when you think about what's happening in the world, you think about the psychology and how we are hardwired, it's sometimes very hard for someone to battle through that.
Yeah.
And which, if you think about it, what ends up happening from a daily kind of operational level is if you delve into your greed and you don't have the right plan, you don't have the right structure, all of those things, you end up building a life that doesn't really make you fulfilled. You're creating a life that validates your position in light of what everyone else is expected to be for you, which is a very, very sad situation. Now, to usually make that happen, you haven't got the right framework in place, and therefore, in most cases, that lifestyle is being built off debt, not off actual wealth itself. Okay? If you're on fear and you're in that scenario, you usually are making really bad decisions. Yeah. And so, we saw a lady recently that kind of got all down the rabbit hole of fear and that the world's going to end. And she ripped out all of her super. She put it all into cash and gold and silver, 100% of it. Her investment time frame, she's still like to get access to superannuation is 25 years away. Now, all three of those assets, argumentatively on gold and silver, people can have their own views on that. But the reality is they're not even going to keep up with inflation.
Yeah.
And then the only way for that person to be able to kind of retire is to then hope that the gold or silver goes gangbust. And if it does go gangbust, in most cases for everyone, the economies are so bad that your wealth is insignificant. So the fundamental core of like gold argument is that the capitalist world and society falls over to the point where gold is tradable. That's number one. Yeah. Or two, that gold is a physical item that can still be used for items and therefore traded for some kind of money. Now, if you're at that level, it's a pretty bad state. Yeah. And so it's deep down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, she kind of pulled herself initially out of it to say, oh my goodness, what have I done with my finances? And the reality is that was when we opened up and we had a deep conversation with her. It was husband and wife, but she was making mainly the decisions on it. This also flowed into everything else in their life.
Yeah.
They were just negative in regards to the way that their work was, their business was. It was really, really like batten down the hatches. And so greed and fear and the fundamental emotions that you have with your money, it can ruin your life.
Yeah. It's interesting you point about the gold, because it's very much it's an era. Like I think about my father-in-law, and he's very much about the gold.
Yep.
Every time we speak to him, I bought you guys some gold and blah, blah, blah. So it's like the war mentality, because everything is like going down, and gold is the only thing that's going to hold its value and have a store of value. So I think we've spoken about this before as well, but like your past also has an effect. So like someone who is feeding into the greed and also into the fear, but how do you, first of all, identify that? But then how do you step away from that and try and make informed decisions? Because like you go and do a Google search, John, it's like a plethora of things that come up. I don't know which one is the right one. Clients come up to us and go, oh, I wanted to invest for my child. I didn't want to do it in a bank account. I just did a Google search and I found that one's the best one. Like, is it the best one? Have you done your research? Or is it just the first one that popped up? Like, how do we identify these traits and what are we going to do? And how do we move away from them?
I'm going to use a thing that we normally do in another profession to figure that out. If you're feeling sick, where do you go?
Well, depends who you ask.
But most cases, you go to the doctor. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
correct.
Now we still don't know if there's a problem, and reality is that it does take some kind of symptom, which that is usually the second guessing. Usually, it's the actual point where you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, "Am I certain that I am going to get to where I need to get to by doing what I'm doing right now?" And if you've got any doubt, so if you scale yourself from say 0 to 10 and you're an 8, you need to go see someone.
Yeah.
Unless you are a 10 out of 10, which requires you to have clear vision, external validation from a licensed professional, not just your mate on the barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all areas of your finances are regular being optimized. So if you're an 8 out of 10, 10 to 10 is you've got everything covered. But if you're an 8 or a 9, you need to seek external support. So then me, it's like, okay, cool. I just want to go and have a regular tune-up. I want to go to the doctor. I feel good, but I just want to make sure because I can't see everything. I don't know what's happening in my bloodstream. I don't know what's happening in my nervous system. I don't know what's happening, whatever. So I go to the doctor and I say to the doctor, hey, doc, listen, to be honest with you, I think I'm good health. Yeah, but, I'm getting a little bit older, and do you reckon that we should do a routine blood test? Yeah, John, you haven't had a blood test in about 18 months. You're probably overdue. You probably came in here 6 months ago. And I go have that blood test. And reality, that's what people need to do. They need to become, if they can't force themselves to be problem aware, they need to go get that kind of financial health check. When a client comes to see me and they do their pre-form, like their preliminary form to come see us, I will see if there's any symptoms or anything that's in their financial bloodstream that I want further investigation from.
Yeah.
And so if my doctor is getting my bloods, that sounds a bit high. Hey, John, I think you should come in. Let's have a bit of a chat. Or, hey, listen, I recommend that you go see blah, blah, blah to have some further testing. Now, that's very similar to what we do. And so I think the first one is for them to go, hey, listen, am I certain of achieving the life I want? And if I'm not certain of achieving the life I want, going to get a checkup, in our case of Thriving Wealth, we offer a free intro chat. You can have a chat for 15 minutes and our advisors will, over a 15-minute phone call, like a telehealth, figure out if you should be going to see an advisor or not.
Yeah.
And that's the first step, in all honesty. And that's I think, available and it's available for us, for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think that's the first step, Ayten.
Yeah. And I think those intro calls are actually really good because, like you say, they identify what the clients want. But some of the questions that we ask the clients, often I get, I haven't really thought of that before. And, I haven't really put much thought into that. I just thought, I've got some surplus cash or whatever it is, and I just need to do something. But I haven't thought that far ahead, for example.
And we had a client recently, an intro call was taken by one of our advisors. Advisor said, listen, I think you should go see John. And I had the meeting with the person. And in the meeting, because obviously in a 15-minute phone call, there's a little bit of like preliminary. So think about like a telehealth conversation, and the advisor's like, hey, listen, I do think you go see a doctor. Yeah. Clients come see me. I go through their situation. And going through their situation, I quickly identified probably in about half an hour that these guys were fine, that they didn't need us. And I wanted to kind of make this a point that we're not going to operate on someone if we don't think we need to operate. It was literally in this case, they were about to take on another mortgage. They were upgrading their house. At the moment, they had about $800 a week of surplus cash flow. But what I quickly identified is once they get that house, that their surplus cash flow would cut down to about $400 a week. But they didn't have sufficient buffers in place. So it was actually like, listen, I know you want to buy the house. The house isn't like you're actually doing this right now. What you're doing in regards to just saving to make sure that you have a most amount of debt is actually where you want it to be. And that's what you should be doing for now.
Yeah.
Supers were fine. Investments were fine. Cash flow, they had a pretty good system. Like there wasn't a significant amount for me to justify surgery.
Yeah.
It was more like, a doctor would say, yeah, you know what? Stop having margarine on your toast every day. Yeah, maybe that will cut back on your high cholesterol or something.
Yeah,
that's exactly what that was. So, I think going back to how people feel, they need to question and look at themselves in the mirror and say, is my emotions getting the better of me? Yeah, am I making decisions? Like we recently had a client that they got a cut in their salary. Okay, so they had significant levels of overtime. They were doing quite well, and their overtime got cut. And to put it in perspective, I think they lost about $60,000 worth of income, and they were saving for a wedding at the same time. This was one that didn't continue. Okay, we tried to save them. The advisor kind of worked with them, said, hey, listen, we've got this all planned out. We've been planning for the wedding. But the reduction in the income, plus with the emotions of the wedding, they said, nah, we're out. Now, I'm raising this for a reason. There was no logical reason for them to stop. They should have kept investing. We had money planned for it. Like the plan was perfect. The levels of income that was actually there, even though he reduced by $60,000, her income was up $60,000. I think it was, to be honest with you, I think it was $55,000 in line with where we wanted their combined income to be.
Yeah.
So like from a total income perspective, they were relatively on track and we had enough buffers in place. We had conversations with them and they cancelled everything. I'm talking about stopped their super contributions, stopped their investing, cancelled all their insurances. This was obviously not our advice. Yeah. But I'm raising this for a reason, because the actual hardest thing is what comes next after the problem awareness. It's change, Ayten. It's everyone comes with the greatest motivations for change, but not many actually change. And that's the fundamental difference between people that are successful or not. It's not the people that go to the gym for 3 weeks. It's the people that go to the gym for 30 years. They're the ones who reap the rewards. It's not the person that just stops alcohol for 2 days. It's the one that stops alcohol for that. Like, it's those things. It's not the motivation. It's the consistency. And it's the consistency that creates the success. If we look at Warren Buffett, he's been investing since he was 11. Like, that's obviously ultra consistent in investing. That's what we're talking about here. And so, you know, I get disheartened from it. I do, because I see so much potential. And to be honest with you guys, this doesn't happen with a lot of people. A lot of people stick to us because they invest in what we do and they believe in the philosophies. But it's just to show you that emotions, if they go out of control, and we know this is the case, Ayten, around things like wedding times. We know this is around times like having children. We know this is times about like redundancies, a lot of people just jump off ship. They put
Yeah.
their head in the sand and
Yeah.
they go, just stop everything.
Yeah.
And that's fear.
Yeah. And I was just going to make that exact same point. Like some people would rather not know what the future is going to hold and just focus on now because they're too scared of what's going to happen in the future instead of planning for that future.
But what's the go with these people? The reality is that they've gone from effed originally, started to get somewhere and gone back to effed.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you think about that, like their option was keep going, do more sit-ups, do more push-ups, do more hard because they're going through that hard bit, or just go, I'm done. I'm done. That's like me with my back just going, I'm not going to exercise anymore, Ayten. I'm finished.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go lie down, put all my weight back on. I'm just going to sit there and let my back just well, that's where I was. I've done so much effort to get where I am right now, and it's just me giving up. And so that is all emotion. That is all psychological. Yeah. It's all around the brain playing tricks on you. And then when you apply that to facets of your life, you can see how much impact it makes. Like what decision I make. Like that person is going through and saying, like, they're not talking about like, okay, cool, it's logical to put my superannuation contributions of $50 a week for the next 30 years and then don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care. That investment bond that we've got for our kids that they need to help us with the education in 10 years from now. Nah. Like, it's...
I think the hardest thing is to see that happening when you go through the journey with them and then you see that final decision being made rather than someone coming to you and saying, hey, I don't know what my future is all about. Show me what the way forward and helping those people get to where they need to get to. So having gone through that journey it's more difficult to see that kind of like part ways.
Correct.
But also like a lot of clients, I'm just going back to the greed factor, but like a lot of our clients, I think you had an example previously about taking some money out of investments, putting it into crypto because like crypto's rising, during COVID time, was lots of like selling down. I think people are very short term. And one of the biggest things with our investment philosophy, and I'm pretty sure most advisors out there would be the long term. We don't want to be touching that long term and we want to have enough buffers in place for the short term.
But Ayten, we take that one step further. If we talk about greed, be greedy when people are fearful, be fearful when people are greedy.
Correct.
So when people are greedy, I am fearful. And when people are fearful, I am greedy. And it's not just saying it, it's doing it.
Yeah, correct.
So this is the other thing. Like everyone tells me they're going to buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
The stats know that is not the case.
Correct.
And even the greatest investment managers, that the gurus of investing, do not do that.
Yeah.
So the only way to have that resolved is by to have a predetermined strategy that is systemized to measures based on a plan. Market goes down by 50%, therefore my exposure in regards to equities have now dropped. I need to stay in this asset allocation, therefore I need to top up my cash. Like it is systemized. Dunk, 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 dunk. And that is created in clear of mind when none of this emotions is playing and it's made by an external person.
Yeah. And I think it's easier for someone who's not in that situation, like your financial advisor, to make that decision. In the past, I've had discussions with a client about their emotional attachment to specific holdings or specific asset classes, for example. And like it's easier for someone who's not emotionally invested in that to make a clearer and a decision that's going to be obviously going to be better for them long term. And so I think half the battle is removing yourself from that situation and thinking, okay, well, if my friend said to me, do this, what would I advise them?
100%. Why do I have a financial advisor for my affairs?
Yeah.
Because I am riddled with biases and emotions, regardless if they're great or not.
Yeah.
Ooh, that house looks nice. Hey, Burjo, you want to go buy that house?
Yeah.
Like that happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
But do I know if I can afford that? Do you know if it's in my plan? Do you know if... I could just be making emotional decisions along the way and they're going to ruin my life, financially speaking.
Yeah.
And I have this on a daily in regards to clients, and I know you do. Is this a logical decision? Is this an emotional decision? Now, sometimes decisions are not logical, they're emotional.
Yeah.
And that is okay. So I'm not going to just say like all emotional decisions are bad.
Yeah.
You just need to know which function you're making the decision from.
Correct.
Give you an example. I want to give my son 250,000. Why, John? I love him. That's it? Yeah. I love him. I saw him smile and I wrote the check. You as my advisor would say, John, that is financially not the thing to do. You should be making loan agreements with your son, like all of these. And you're just like, nah. So if you know you're making the decision based on emotion, you know that you're making probably a poor one financially and logically. That's okay. Yeah. But as long as you know where the function's coming from, if you want that nice bag or that nice car or that nice whatever, that is okay. But you're probably making that off emotion, not based on logic. But we can't live life just off logical, financially optimized strategies on every single thing we do.
Yeah.
And it's getting that balance between the greed, the fear, and that nice equilibrium where the sweet spot happens. And that's where the art happens.
Yeah.
I was I was doing a video for Kaplan last week, and this was kind of off the video. And this lady was in advice, the person that was interviewing me. She used to be in compliance of advice. And then previous to that, she used to be an advisor. So this is a lady with like 30 years of experience. She gets off the call and she's like, John, what you're doing in 2025, and I was talking about behavioral finance, or a lot of this stuff. And she's like, what you're doing in 2025 is art. She's like, because there's so many moving parts in regards to the financials around this, the emotional behaviors and stuff, and then being able to kind of link that all in between to then making a decision. And the reality is it is, because there's just humans are so irrational in the way that they think, and then trying to then build that towards a optimized plan.
Yeah.
And that's us as professionals admitting that it's hard for us to kind of control all of this and make good decisions. Like, when people are doing this just on their own without knowing where they're going.
It's hard. I mean, I have an example of a client that was looking to purchase a house, and they've been looking to purchase a house for the last probably 2 years. Nothing kind of came on the market. Looking at one particular property and like buying the property, but they need to make additional like changes, renovations to the property. Probably going to cost them like $500,000. They were like umming and ahhing. We kind of got on the call. This is what it's going to look like. This is what you'll need in order for you to purchase this property. And then by the end of the call, they were like, yeah, we just needed someone to show us and talk to us about it to make us realize, actually, this isn't a rational decision. We were just stuck here because we've been here for such a long time and we just want this resolved.
And it's amazing how much, when you see the logic, what it does to the emotions. It's like pouring water on the fire sometimes, and it just lets it settle down.
Yeah.
And then when you get to that spot where you're like, no, I still want to make that emotional decision, you at least know which brain it's coming from.
Yeah.
It's coming from the logical brain or if it's coming from the emotional brain. I just want to kind of step into the investment world, because emotions are not something that has been just when social media has been around and the internet. This has been something that, this emotional roller coaster, as we talk, is something that's been battling humans for forever and a day. Okay. And if you look about recently we've obviously had the COVID crash. People said that they were making mozzas. Yes, that's when all the money came, but it's when people weren't making money and the economies were shutting down where people made real big money for the people that actually did the right things. But if you look at the GFC, you look at the dot-com bubble, you look at all of the 1987 Wall Street crash, you look at all of the ones previous to that, the wars and all of that. But even in the 1800s, this was the case. And actually, I want to go back to even the 1700s and the 1600s of when this gets out of hand. In 1711, there was a company called the South Sea Company. And South Sea Company essentially was in today's day and age like one of those meme stocks, and it went gangbust. And a big name at the time invested in it. So it's like today's version of Elon Musk investing in this stock, and everyone knew about it. And the guy at the time was Sir Isaac Newton. You know, the guy that pretty much invented gravity. You know, if you if you speak to most if you research well-known kind of scientists, you'll see that Isaac Newton's usually right up there, and he's battling it out with Albert Einstein in regards to who's the smartest minds ever. Okay, but he went broke, Ayten. He went broke because he jumped on the hype. He sold and made a lot of money in his original sale, then kind of bought back in, and then when he bought back in, the stock just went bang. And so he went from like hero to zero. And he says like a famous quote, which is like, I can, measure the gravitational pull of like planets, but I can't manage the human minds of individuals and the way that they interact with the market. Okay. Essentially commenting, not in that, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but like he's commenting around that the market is just so irrational in the way that it is, because it's human minds that are contributing to this market. Yeah. Okay. Now, that company ended up being a meme stock, essentially. It was a bit of a fraud, and he did get kind of, held up in all of that. But even if you kind of go back one step back in regards to the 1600s, and we're talking about now the Dutch Empire. So we're talking about the Dutch Empire flourishing. Everyone's making lots of money. And you could argue this is happening in the US. And remember, if they cough, we sneeze. And so there was a thing called tulip mania back in the 1600s. I think it was 1632, if I'm correct. And like little tulip bulbs, they became like highly in demand, okay? And these tulip bulbs went to the price, and I'm going to kind of butcher this, but I think it was like the price of like 17 maids' annual salaries. That's how much one bulb was, okay? Yeah. So it was like ridiculous price, but people, all the Dutch, all the influentials, all the, in today's day and age, all the influencers, all the aristocrats, they were all buying these bulbs, and that went to zero. Now, you got to think about it. These aren't dumb people. What happens is at the start, there's a few smart people, and then the kind of dumber money comes in until it all comes crashing down. And I'm saying this because all of that is the fear of missing out. It's all FOMO, yeah? There's no fundamental basis behind it. It is all emotion that is driving that. Like if someone actually logically, like you laugh at the situation that it's a tulip bulb, and you see if you went to Bunnings how much a tulip bulb would be worth for one of these, nurseries of tulip bulb. Yeah. Like there's no like value towards it. Yeah. Even the South Sea Company, like if you looked at the balance sheets and you looked at the profit and loss statements, there's no like actual fundamental value. And so when we look at like investments, you got to still remember what you're buying. So take the emotion away of that. Yeah. We've got some stocks with PE ratios that are incredibly high on the S&P 500, incredibly high, even some in regards to the ASX 200. Like first and foremost, do you even know what a PE ratio is? And so if you don't know what a PE ratio is, it's the price over earnings. Okay, so what's the actual company? First and foremost, is there actual earnings? Now, a lot of these, for example, tech stocks, yeah, people are also similar to, say, some other asset classes are with the hope of these growing. And I do understand that. You need to take into consideration that the value of an asset is based on its future income, not the current income, it's future income, because something could be dying or could be growing. So this is where it's not an exact like 1 + 1 = 2 scenario. However, the higher the PE ratio, the more risky the asset is, fundamentally. Like logically speaking, that is the case. The lower it is, usually the less risk you're taking, because the price you're paying versus the earnings you're getting in return. Now, if you take this, for example, like property, for example, if you've got a house, that's the price, yeah, the earnings is the rental return, yeah? And if you're getting real high rental return, let's say you're getting 50% of the value of the house, well, then the value would be really low, yeah? That's what it's trying to refer to. But because of emotions, people make irrational decisions. They're not making them logically. Like everyone, not everyone, but if you had to kind of take the emotion out, and I'm not talking about stocks, and I just said, like, which one's more risky? The one with a PE ratio of 50 times or the one with a PE ratio of 5 times? in most cases, people are going to say 5 times. Now, 50 times is more high risk. 5 times, you also need to be paying for, sometimes you pay cheap, for not good quality. So there's this kind of quality overlay that comes into it, and that's why it's much more complex than that exact ratio. But first and foremost, people don't understand what they're buying, number one. 2, are you making an emotional decision based on what someone else has told you and therefore just feeding into the FOMO because that person told you about that stock pick or that crypto pick or whatever it is? Or are you actually knowing what you're actually buying? And see, in today's day and age, especially when it comes to the stock market, there's much more simpler ways to invest, especially with the rise of index-based investing and stuff like that, that you now start to back economies and capitalism rather than the actual stock itself. And it was interesting, I was on one of these stages last week, and when they were talking about the ASX 200, and they were just talking about since 2000 to today, that only, so in the top 200 stocks, only 36 stocks remain in that top 200. And so how many people invested in the other, 164 of them?
Yeah.
Thought that there was the next winner into the ASX, they floated, they this, that, and how many people lost?
Yeah.
And so greed and fear are getting worse on the consumer. And so the people that are making their daily decisions on logic, their investment decisions based on logic, financially speaking, are going further and further and further ahead of the people that are being driven off greed and fear.
Yeah. Because like in this day and age, it's easier to make those decisions based on the greed and fear, right? But going back to your ETF comment there, I mean, there's a plethora of ETFs out there too. So it's not like you can just go, oh yeah, like I'll just invest here and invest there. There's still a method to the madness, right?
100%. So
whilst it's a better option, it's not the only solution.
Yeah, well, when you break through the greed and the fear, then you then realise that you're swimming in this environment of all of these options.
Yeah.
And what the hell was I doing?
Yeah.
So it's like, in a way, you're driving in a car with your windscreen completely fogged. You don't know where you're driving, and then you can now see through the windscreen, and there's like all these possible different ways to get to the destination, and that's the scary part, because that's the scary part where you're now going, okay, oh shit, was I going the right way? I nearly died. I didn't see that over there, and then now I'm here. First and foremost, was I traveling for 5 years in the opposite direction? Yeah. Because I now see a sign and it's completely the opposite. Like, that's what actually happens when you get through the emotion. So you can understand that when someone's in and have got the emotions removed, we're now showing clarity. There's that fear of change. Yeah. There's that fear around, like, some people will be like, okay, anyway, it is what it is. I've traveled 5 years in the wrong direction.
What's another 5 years?
Do you know what I mean? There's some people that are like, stuff it. I've gone 5 years. Let's just go keep going in the opposite direction in the hope of me end up getting there, teleported to the other way. Or there's some people that are gone like, at least it wasn't 15 years. Let's stop the car, turn around. Let's go in the other direction. This time, Ayten in the passenger seat. Tell me left, right, straight. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And so now we're making a logical decisions on the pathway to getting to where we're getting to, rather than clouded by these emotions and these judgment that is ruining your pathway to financial freedom.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long journey, isn't it?
It is, Ayten. And you know what? We can talk about this too forever and a day, because I'm so passionate about, helping people, because I know that this is a fundamental core problem for most people, even if you don't know it, okay? For me to admit that I need someone, a financial advisor in my team, to work with me and my wife to work through our biases and our behavioural habits, you know what it means for you guys as well too. So thanks, Ayten, for jumping on. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. If you're loving these, please make sure that you subscribe on our YouTube channel and on all our major music platforms as well. And be sure to send these to your friends and family. Until next time, thank you. Cheers.